I am here with Leo. Good evening, OYM Facebook group. Good evening, gentlemen. If you guys remember, me and Leo had a conversation back on April 17th, and we just double checked right now exactly the date, April 17th, where we chatted about Leo's process, his personal transformation as he evolved in working on his marriage, in terms of saving his marriage, the actual changes that happened um, in his own personal life. And some guys asked me regularly, they're like, "Hey," not just about Leo, but about other guys, like, "Hey, what has been going on with Mike? What has been going on with other guys who have interviewed?" And Leo agreed to come back and give a second interview and just answer questions and just share a little bit about his journey. So, having said that, let's get right into it. Let me just get this rolling here. All right, cool. Leo, thank you very much for joining us. And
Thank you.
I don't expect the guys who a lot of probably, I would say at least 600-700 new guys joined since the last interview, and they probably haven't seen your the first interview. So can you just give a little bit of background about you? Let's not assume that everybody has seen you already. A little bit about you.
So as far as I was married, it actually would be 23 years on the 23rd of this month, together 27. December we separated. We've been living apart since February. And I joined the program in March, and um, my own growth, I mean, that's what I focused on, like, to get to where I'm at. Of course, the marriage is, as you know, well, as David knows, but I've been served with divorce papers, and uh, I'm dealing with it, and I'm happy where I'm at, and I'll continue to, grow as a person for my kids. I got two young daughters still at home, and so that's where I'm at. Just working on myself and letting everything else fall into place.
Okay,
So,
when you say working on your own growth, let's talk about that a little bit. Why did you decide that working on your own growth as you're going through this divorce, the separation process? When we started, like you said, it was a separation process, and you got served divorce quite a bit later.
um,
Why did you feel like it was important to work on yourself?
because at first I was really lost. I mean, uh, I didn't know what to do. I was uh, really wanting the marriage to work, and uh, but I myself wasn't strong enough to deal with that. I was doing the whole neediness, and like I said, as I've gone through my own personal growth, I feel like even though it hasn't worked out with me and Amy at this point, I feel like our relationship is better than it was when we first separated. Um, just because I'm a stronger person. So,
Could you talk
uh,
about two things? And you said two important things over here. You said there was neediness, but there's no longer neediness. You said it in like one word, but we
mhm.
glossed over it. Can you talk a little bit about what do you mean that there was neediness, what it looked like? And then number two, let's talk about, like you said, like you haven't gotten yet to where you want to get with Amy, your wife, but the relationship is a lot better right now. So can you talk about both parts? And I know one of them goes back in time and one of them is current, if you may.
uh, so at the beginning, I mean, I had a lot of self doubt in myself, which made me actually not really fear talking to her, but I just was like walking on eggshells. I wanted everything to work out. I had not a whole lot of like self confidence. And like I said, as I worked through working on myself, I became a stronger person, which, you know, um, yeah. So like I said, we all fall into that instant results, the neediness, and I had to learn, for myself that everything takes time and patience, so and so like now I feel like even with the interactions, I mean, I like I said, I still have my moments where I want to send her a text, but it's gotten a lot better. So
Look,
I'm more
the
independent.
reality is, Leo. Let's be honest. The reality is that the marriage has not moved forward as quickly as you wanted to.
exactly.
In fact, you got divorce papers served at a point where things seemed to be even getting better, or at least it was more of an amicable relationship. So that's a reality, you know.
Mhm.
I want to dive in a little bit when you say working on yourself. What does that mean when you say working on yourself? Because the reason I'm asking, a lot of guys work on themselves,
Yeah.
right? But it doesn't do anything
Um,
for the marriage. And here you're working on yourself. What do you mean by working on yourself?
um, I did a lot of, uh, a lot of looking at myself, what I had done as a person to lead up to, where we were at and how I was as a father, and it's just not where I wanted to be. And so, I really dove into what my insecurities and what my flaws were and how I can be a better person. And I every day I try to, you know, just do something to improve myself. And so, and it was a long, slow process. I mean, I struggled with a lot of things, because you get into routines and habits, and it takes a long time to change those. But like I still make mistakes, but I learn from my mistakes, and I'm just continuing forward and trying to be the best person I can be at this point. So,
Could I ask you a tough question? I know you're not ready for it because I didn't. It just popped into my head right now as you were talking. You said best, try to be the best person, and what would you say to somebody who says, "Okay, I'm going through divorce, I'm going through separation, um, I'm not happy with the way it's going. I don't know how to stop it, but I'm working on myself. I'm trying to become a better person, and I'm trying to figure out all the flaws in the past, and I'm trying to become a better person by myself." What would you say to that person?
um, I thought I could do it myself too, and I couldn't. Everything I tried for, since December wasn't working, and you know,
Why
um,
wasn't it working?
because I didn't have a clear path. Basically, I was trying, like we've talked to it. Say, I watched a lot of stuff on YouTube, and you try and you know, use little bits and pieces, but there's no clear path. It's kind of like running around in a circle. To me, that's what it felt like. You know, yeah, nothing I would do or say or anything worked with my wife. And so I knew I just needed to find, I knew I needed to work on myself, but I wanted that clear path. Uh, basically something that I could be accountable, be held accountable to, and actually learn something that I can use. And like even, I honestly don't know if, like we've talked, I mean, whether or not me and Amy get back together, what I've learned about myself, and it'll help me in any relationship, going forward, or whether Amy's involved or what. So,
Well, are you seeing
um,
changes in other relationships besides with Amy? Are you seeing changes where
yeah.
the working on yourself? Tell us a little bit about that.
Like I told you, with my kids, it's gotten a lot better. I'm more focused on them and their needs, and it's like I told you, my older daughter just moved away, and we're actually closer than we've been in the last 3 or 4 years. We talk every day on the phone. My work relationships are getting better. I actually told you I had always had this fear of, the company I wanted to start, and I'm actually doing that now. And so, a lot of things are falling into place, and things are actually turning around for me, like, both as personal and with my relationships. So,
Hmm. And what would you say to the million dollar question here? The guys are probably thinking, okay, you're saying things are falling into place. You're in terms of your financial responsibilities, or at least in terms of the way your employment is or self-employment is, you're becoming having much better relationships with your kids, and you're connecting it to the fact that you worked on yourself. The question is, what is, and I don't even know if you could answer because you're sort of in the process, um, but I'm just for the fun of it, how would you describe the AMFT process that you've been through to the best of your ability? And I don't expect you to talk for an hour and 45 minutes, just in a couple of minutes. How would you describe the process of working on yourself in a clear path as opposed to just taking bits? Because I remember when you were taking bits and pieces from YouTube and videos, a little bit of me, a little bit of somebody else, a little bit from a book, a little bit from like just your best ideas
Yeah.
and whatever. How do you describe what is that clear path? And I don't know if you could answer this question because it's nuanced and there are many layers. But I'll fill in whatever details I need to. But how would you say to someone put you on the spot and say, okay, Leo, what in the world is your one clear path that has allowed you to become the best version of yourself in a way that you know it's giving you a better relationship with Amy, regardless of what happens, much better relationship with your kids, people around you in your family and in your employment are noticing it. What is that clear path?
For me, it was the accountability. I mean, you provide the tools, but I had to keep myself motivated and, following, you pretty much lay it out there. Like you said, you'll steer, but I had to stay on the gas. And I followed, I learned a lot of the tools that you provided. And
What were those tools? Let's go a little deep, a little more beyond the superficial. Give me one example of a tool, without sharing anything which is too personal that you don't feel comfortable with.
Yeah, I mean, just how to, from the beginning, you said we had marriage cancer, and so, and you've done videos on that, and I had to learn how to change how I treated my wife. Like, I always was resentful of how she treated me, and I learned that she's actually in a lot more pain than I was, and so.
So stop. Let's stop for a second. This is where, if it's okay with you, I want to go a little deeper on this so guys can understand the ability to see her pain more than, because you came in with a lot of your own pain, and it was legitimate pain. It was real. It's painful to be in a situation where your wife left you and she's potentially interested in other men and she's, really not open to you. It's painful, and she says things to the kids or in front of the kids when she's speaking to you. So it is painful. The ability, though, and I think it's important for guys to understand, the ability to see your wife's pain came from certain skills. The ability to sort of go into Amy's head. And they're different. We have a bunch of different training modules that have done that. How to go into your wife's head, which is essentially subconscious communication. How to see things from her perspective. How to see you from her perspective. Now, I want to ask you that. When we've gone through the process of okay, this is how she sees you. The clear path is you have to see what she sees, even though you don't like it. But you have to see who she's seeing, right? She's seeing the cat part of your personality. We spoke the 3% of you which is feeding the wrong picture in her head. There was 3% of you, about 3 to 5%, little subtle things subconsciously that are making her feel that you're desperate or you're controlling or you're selfish or you're not the person she married, right? How would you describe that process? Was that more, I don't think I've ever asked you this question, but was it more painful or was it more fun? What's the balance for you when you're able to see yourself from her eyes?
At first it was painful, but as I started to really think about it, and even with our interactions, it actually became more, I wouldn't say fun, but it was more eye-opening for me, and it actually helped me deal a lot better.
Better with who?
With Amy, actually. I mean, like I said, it wasn't that I was scared of her. I was just, you're walking on eggshells. You don't want to, but when you start taking a step back and, a lot of the things, even though, she said a lot of mean things, it's just how she's expressing. So you kind of just take it and, take the high road and don't dig into it too deep and don't, I just started letting her talk and listen and, and just, I mean, it was definitely a learning process for me. I mean, like I said, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It was tough, but, I feel like I'm in a better place by, using those tools, and a lot of the other tools that I've learned. I mean, and like I said, the relationship with me and Amy, it's we're actually good. We don't fight or anything, so we're we're not together, but we share kids, and we've got a grandbaby coming, and I feel like our relationship's at a good point as far as co-parenting, and so I feel good about that too. And I think 3 months ago I wouldn't have felt good about that. Like I still would have been, this is not what I want, but I'm dealing with it, and I feel good about it. So,
and we're not done. We're still in the middle of the process. We're still in the middle of the story, and sometimes with guys who come with advanced marriage cancer, it does take longer. Um, there's a lot to be said about it, because there are some times where somebody will come in and they actually will at some point will say, "Hey, 1 second." And I'm not saying this is going to happen to you, but this has happened quite often, where a guy comes in and says, "Hey, a couple of months in, I don't want to work on the marriage. I love the person I've become, but I want to take the skills that I have and take it to another woman. I don't want to fix my own marriage." And that's, my goal is to help with the marriage, but that's something I can't impose on anybody. Question, like, you've mentioned at one point, like, you have a lot more self-confidence right now. And I'm going to pick your brains on this, right? If somebody's watching this and saying, okay, I need a self-confidence. Let me just work on my self-confidence. And if I have my self-confidence, that's going to help the marriage. On the one hand, there's a certain truth to that. On the other hand, there's a certain trap to that, the way I see it. Now, I want to hear from your perspective, again, because we come from two different perspectives. I've been doing this for many years. You're very, very fresh in the system, like in this strategy. What would you say to somebody who's just a couple of months behind you, right, and says, "Hey, okay, Leo, I'm going to work on my self-confidence, and that's going to help my marriage"? What would you say to that person if he's your brother?
I mean, yeah, that is a tough question. I mean, like I said, I'm not all the way done. I'm honestly, I am still working, not so much on my marriage, but I'm working on our relationship, which may, like I said, may or may not turn into anything in the future. But I have the confidence now, like, either way, whatever happens, I'm gonna be okay.
But where's your confidence coming from? I think the reason why what you felt was a tough question was because maybe it wasn't specific enough. So I apologize.
Yeah.
But where is the confidence? Is the confidence coming from, "Hey, I'm confident," or is it coming from a specific source or a specific skill? Or
I think it's just like I said, when I started, I had to reevaluate who I was as a person, and I think it's my own growth that's given me the confidence. And like I said, I mean, my biggest confidence booster right now is with the relationship I'm having with my kids. Honestly, I mean, that alone is what keeps me going. But like I said, I'm not done working on all that, and I feel like I have the tools to continue to do that. But I'm good either way. Like at this point, I mean, as a person, I mean, just by going through the program, I mean, it's given me a lot of I guess self-worth, and actually finding out who I was and what actually I want in life. And so
that's a powerful thing, and that's a powerful point of, like, finding out who I was. And I want to elaborate on it, if it's okay, to help guys understand it, because we're talking a language which may not even be understood to some people over here, right? It's like, what do you mean? What do you mean you found out who you were? What happens over time as a marriage goes on, if there's marriage cancer, where the woman doesn't really feel the husband's love, and she starts getting stuck with the wrong picture of him in her head. She starts focusing on only certain little things that he does, which feeds that wrong picture. She starts, and the marriage doesn't just become stagnant. Her opinion of her husband becomes stuck. Leo, right? We both know this, and if a guy doesn't get the clarity on, like, 1 second, who have I become without me realizing it? Who is that? Where have I gone from, like, being the person she fell in love with to somebody very, very different in her eyes? What are all those little things along the way, dozens and hundreds of little details, where I said or did things which started slowly changing the image in her head, right? What, in your opinion, what happened to the next relationship you have, or to the relationship with your kids, if you didn't have this clarity of seeing who you have evolved and what happened, if you didn't see what exactly is the best version of Leo, if you didn't see that whole evolution from like where, or deterioration really, from where like you used to be to like what happened, what do you think would happen to your future relationships or to your relationships with your kids?
I think they would still be, I mean, with my kids, it would still be, you know, I don't want to say stuck, but, you know, still the old habits I had as far as, you know, my own insecurities, like just, you know, yeah, like I said, I had to do a lot of self-digging to see what I was doing wrong. And I mean, like going forward, even with any relationship, I feel like, I mean, those habits are ingrained. I mean, in my relationship with Amy, you know, we were teenagers. And so we pretty much went through all life cycles together. And so, you know, we had those habits from, you know, teens, 20s, 30s, 40s. And, you know, that's a lot to, like, dig back on and see. But, you know, like my kids, they, especially my older daughter, the little ones, you know, because they live with me and, you know, it's getting better. But my 20-year-old is the one that's really seen the changes. You know, it's, she says all the time, like, how proud she is of me. And, yeah, no, it's a pretty eye-opening thing. And even, you know, even my friends, they say, man, you're handling this really well. Like from, you know, from months ago, like, how do you do it? And it's like, well, you know, you just have to, you have to do it. That's what I finally, I mean, there's no, you know, there's only going to be one outcome, whether it's, and so you have to do it. You can't just give up. And that's how I am doing day to day. Just continue to work on myself and work on the relationships that are healthy, and hopefully the other ones fall into place. If not, then there's other opportunities. So,
oh, thank you. That was awesome, and I want to bring the attention of guys to what you just said. There are 2 points. Number one, and to you as well. Like when you're saying your daughter's noticing the changes in the people around you, like some of your wife's friends as well. There, which you mentioned to me, like I believe you said that. No, it was your wife's friends, right? The other time, like those things contribute in a very subconscious way to the relationship, because sooner or later people go back and say things to your wife. They say things to her, and it's really authentic because you're not telling them to say anything to her. It's happening automatically. So there's a real power in it. The worst thing you can do is actually to go and tell them to say something to your wife. It's a mistake a lot of guys make. But because these changes are actually flowing from a real deep heart of the best version of who you are, they're so authentic and they're so deep that they, number one, cover all parts of your life, like all people that you care about, like your kids and your employment and your wife and people who care about you and your family. And then it spills over from, like, this feedback starts coming back to Amy from your daughter. Sooner or later, right? They say things, hey, by the way, Leo, all positive, and none of it is manipulative, none of it is exploitive, none of it is you telling someone to say something, and that's why there is that improvement in the relationship, in not as quick as you want it to be, not in the direction you want it to be, but in a way that you know that you're on track in terms of healing something within yourself and with her. But another point, Leo, you said, which I think is very important, you sort of said it. You explained it very well, but I think some guys really got to really understand what this means. There are deeply ingrained habits that you've accumulated over decades. We're talking about decades. You're married for 27 years. Or is that right? Or
together 27.
You're together
married 23. Yeah.
Right, together for 27 years, right?
Yeah.
What happens is over time there are different habits that accumulate. If you don't actually understand exactly every single one of those, they will follow you. They will, even if you think, and this is the kicker, even if you think you're becoming your best version, even if you think, hey, I'm becoming a great guy, I'm working on myself, and this is the trap that a lot of guys who work on themselves, but they're so frustrated, and they get nowhere in their relationship, and they get nowhere with their kids, they get nowhere in their employment, they don't make any significant improvement in measurably important areas in their lives, It's because they're working on becoming the best version without any attention at all to what happened in the past, without any attention to truly understanding or breaking down those little things they said or did which blocked their wife from feeling his love. The little things they said or did which communicated the wrong picture of the guy to the wife. I want to thank you for coming, because there's something really powerful about guys doing interviews in middle of the process. In middle, where it's sort of messy, bloody in the sense that it's like, it's not clean, it's not neat, you're not exactly where you want to be yet, but you're on the right path. You're doing the right thing, and it feels good, and everybody around you knows it too, including Amy, right?
Yeah.
Now that's coming up against 27 years of pain, 27 years of, in a certain way, of confusion, or of where there was a slow deterioration. So 3 months doesn't just reverse 27 years that fast, typically. But I appreciate you just taking the time to share this with other guys